Lesson 11, the Law of Karma. Karma is a Sanskrit term for that great law known to Western thinkers as spiritual cause and effect, or causation. It relates to the complicated affinities for either good or evil that have been acquired by the soul throughout its many incarnations. These affinities manifest as characteristics enduring from one incarnation to another, being added to here, softened or altered there, but always pressing forward for expression and manifestation. And, so, it follows that what each one of us is in this life depends upon is what we have been and how we have acted in our past lives. Throughout the operations of the law of karma, the manifestation of perfect justice is apparent. We are not punished for our sins, as the current beliefs have it, but instead we are punished by our sins. We are not rewarded for our good acts, but we received our reward through and by characteristics, qualities, affinities, etc., acquired by reason of our having performed these good acts in previous lives. We are our own judges and executioners. In our present lives we are storing up good or bad karma which will stick to us closely, and which will demand expression and manifestation in lives to come. When we fasten around ourselves the evil of bad karma, we have taken to shelter a monster which will gnaw into our very vitals until we shake him off by developing opposite qualities. And when we draw to ourselves the good karma of duty well performed, kindness well expressed, and good deeds freely performed without hope of reward, then do we weave for ourselves the beautiful garments which we are destined to wear upon the occasion of our future lives. The yogi teachings relating to the law of karma do not teach us that sin is an offense against the power which brought us into being, so much as it is an offense against ourselves. We cannot injure the Absolute, nor harm it in any way, but we may harm each other, and in so doing harm ourselves. The yogis teach that sin is largely a matter of ignorance and misunderstanding of our true nature, and that the lesson must be well learned until we are able to see the folly and error of our former course, and thus are able to remedy our past errors and to avoid their recurrence. By karma, the effects arising from our sins cling to us, until we become sick and weary of them, and seek their cause in our hearts. When we have discovered the evil cause of these effects, we learn to hate it and tear it from us as a foul thing, and are then evermore relieved of it. The yogis view the sinning soul as the parent does the child who will persist in playing with forbidden things. The parent cautions the child against playing with the stove, but still the child persists in its disobedience, and sooner or later receives a burn for its meddling. The burn is not a punishment for the disobedience, although it may seem so to it, but comes in obedience to a natural law which is invariable. The child finds out that stoves and burns are connected, and begins to see some sense and reason in the admonitions of the parent. The love of the parent sought to save the child the pain of the burn, and yet the child nature persisted in experimenting, and was taught the lesson. But the lesson once thoroughly learned, it is not necessary to forbid the child the stove, for it has learned the danger for itself and thereafter avoids it. And thus it is with the human soul passing on from one life to another. It learns new lessons, gathers new experiences, and learns to recognize the pain that invariably comes from wrong action, and the happiness that invariably comes from right action. As it progresses, it learns how hurtful certain courses of action are, and like the burnt child it avoids them thereafter. If we will but stop to consider for a moment the relative degrees of temptation to us and to others, we may see the operations of past karma in former lives. Why is it that this thing is no temptation to you, while it is the greatest temptation to another? Why is it that certain things do not seem to have any attraction for him, and yet they attract you so much that you have to use all of your willpower to resist them? It is because of the karma in your past lives. The things that do not now tempt you, have been outlived in some former life, and you have profited by your own experiences, or those of others, or else through some teaching given you by one who had been attracted to you by your unfolding consciousness of truth. We are profiting today by the lessons of our past lives. If we have learned them well, we are receiving the benefit, while if we have turned our backs on the words of wisdom offered us, or have refused to learn the lesson perfectly, we are compelled to sit on the same old school benches and hear the same old lesson repeated until it is fairly driven into our consciousness. We wonder why it is that other persons can perform certain evil acts that seem so repulsive to us, and are apt to pride ourselves upon our superior virtue. But those who know, realize that their unfortunate brethren have not paid sufficient attention to the lesson of the past, and are having it repeated to them in a more drastic form this time. They know that the virtuous ones are simply reaping the benefit of their own application in the past, but that their lesson won, not over, and that unless they advance and hold fast to that which they have attained, as well, they will be outstripped by many of those whose failure they are now viewing with wonder and scorn. It is hard for us to fully realize that we are what we are because of our past experiences. It is difficult for us to value the experiences that we are now going through, because we do not fully appreciate the value of bitter experiences once lived out and outlived. Let us look back over the experiences of this present life. For instance, how many bitter episodes are there which we wish had never happened, and how we wish we could tear them out of our consciousness. But we do not realize that from these same bitter experiences came knowledge and wisdom that we would not part with under any circumstances, and yet if we were to tear away from us the cause of these benefits, we would tear away the benefits also, and would find ourselves back just where we were before the experience happened to us. What we would like to do is to hold on to the benefits that came from the experience, the knowledge and wisdom that were picked from the tree of pain. But we cannot separate the effect from the cause in this way, and must learn to look back upon these bitter experiences as the causes from which our present knowledge, wisdom and attainment proceeded. Then may we cease to hate these things, and to see that good may come from evil, under the workings of the law. And when we are able to do this, we shall be able to regard the painful experiences of our present day as the inevitable outcome of causes away back in our past, but which will work surely toward increased knowledge, wisdom and attainment, if we will but see the good underlying the working of the law. When we fall in with the working of the law of karma, we recognize its pain not as an injustice or punishment, but as the beneficent operation of a law which, although apparently working evil, has for its end and aim ultimate good. Many object to the teachings of the law of karma by saying that the experiences of each life not being remembered, must be useless and without value. This is a very foolish position to take concerning the matter. These experiences, although not fully remembered, are not lost to us at all. They are made a part of the material of which our minds are composed. They exist in the form of feelings, characteristics, inclinations, likes and dislikes, affinities, attractions, repulsions, etc., etc., and are as much in evidence as are the experiences of yesterday which are fresh in our memory. Look back over your present life, and try to remember the experiences of the past years. You will find that you remember but few of the events of your life. The pressing and constant experiences of each of the days that you have lived have been, for the most part, forgotten. Though these experiences may have seemed very vivid and real to you when they occurred, still they have faded into nothingness now, and they are to all intents and purposes lost to you. But are they lost? Not at all. You are what you are because of the results of these experiences. Your character has been molded and shaped, little by little, by these apparently forgotten pains, pleasures, sorrows and happinesses. This trial strengthened you along certain lines that one changed your point of view and made you see things with a broader sweep of vision. This grief caused you to feel the pain of others. That disappointment spurred you on to new endeavors. And each and every one of them left a permanent mark upon your personality, upon your character. All men are what they are by reason of what they have lived through and out, and though these happenings, scenes, circumstances, occurrences, experiences, have faded from the memory, their effects are indelibly imprinted upon the fabric of the character, and the man of today is different from what he would have been had the happening or experience not entered into his life. And this same rule applies to the characteristics brought over from past incarnations. You have not the memory of the experiences, but you have the fruit in the shape of characteristics, tastes, inclinations, etc. You have a tendency toward certain things, and a distaste for others. Certain things attract, while others repel you. All of these things are the result of your experiences in former incarnations. Your very taste and inclination toward occult studies which has caused you to read these lessons is your legacy from some former life in which someone spoke a word or two to you regarding the subject, and attracted your interest and desire. You learned some little about the subject then, perhaps much, and developed a desire for more knowledge along these lines, which manifesting in your present life has brought you in contact with further instruction. The same inclination will lead to further advancement in this life, and still greater opportunities in future incarnations. Nearly everyone who reads these lines has felt that much of this occult instruction imparted is but a relearning of something previously known, although many of the things taught have never been heard before in this life. You pick up a book and read something, and know at once that it is so, because in some vague way you have a consciousness of having studied and worked out the problem in some past period of your lives. All this is the working of the law of karma, which caused you to attract that for which you have an affinity, and which also causes others to be attracted to you. Many are the reunions of people who have been related to each other in previous lives. The old loves and old hates work out their karmic results in our lives. We are bound to those whom we have loved, and also to those whom we may have injured. The story must be worked out to the end, although a knowledge of the law undoubtedly relieves one of many entangling attachments and karmic relationships, by pointing out the nature of the relation, and enabling one to free himself mentally from the bond, which process tends to dissolve much of the karmic entanglements. Life is a great school for the learning of lessons. It has many grades, many classes, many scales of progress, and the lessons must be learned whether we will or number. If we refuse or neglect to learn the lesson, we are sent back to accomplish the task, again and again, until the lesson won. Finally learned. Nothing once learned is ever forgotten entirely. There is an indelible imprint of the lesson won. Our character, which manifests as predispositions, tastes, inclinations, etc. All that goes to make up that which we call character is the workings of the law of karma. There is no such thing as chance. Nothing ever happens. All is regulated by the law of cause and effect, or karma. As a man sows, so shall he reap, in a literal sense. You are what you are today, by reason of what you were in your last life. And in your next life you will be what you are making of yourself today. You are your own judge, an executioner, your own bestower of rewards. But the love of the Absolute is ever working to lead you upward to the light, and to open your soul to that knowledge that, in the words of the yogis, burns up karma, and enables you to throw off the burden of cause and effect that you have been carrying around with you, and which has weighted you down. In the 14 lessons we quoted from Mr. Barry Benson, a writer in the Century magazine for May, 1894, the quotation fits so beautifully into this place, that we venture to reproduce it here once more, with your permission. It reads as follows: A little boy went to school. He was very little. All that he knew he had drawn in with his mother's milk. His teacher, who was God, placed him in the lowest class, and gave him these lessons to learn: Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt do no hurt to any living thing. Thou shalt not steal. So the man did not kill, but he was cruel, and he stole. At the end of the day, when his beard was gray, when the night was come, his teacher, who was God, said, Thou hast learned not to kill, but the other lessons thou hast not learned. Come back tomorrow. On the morrow he came back a little boy, and his teacher, who was God, put him in a class a little higher, and gave him these lessons to learn: Thou shalt do no hurt to any living thing. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not cheat. So the man did no hurt to any living thing, but he stole and cheated. And at the end of the day, when his beard was gray, when the night was come, his teacher, who was God, said, Thou hast learned to be merciful, but the other lessons thou hast not learned. Come back tomorrow. Again, on the morrow, he came back, a little boy, and his teacher, who was God, put him in a class yet a little higher, and gave him these lessons to learn: Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not cheat. Thou shalt not covet. So the man did not steal, but he cheated and he coveted. And at the end of the day, when his beard was gray, when the night was come, his teacher, who was God, said, Thou hast learned not to steal, but the other lessons thou hast not learned. Come back, my child, tomorrow. This is what I have read in the faces of men and women, in the book of the world, and in the scroll of the heavens, which is writ with stars. Under the operation of the law of karma, every man is master of his own destiny. He rewards himself, he punishes himself, he builds, tears down, and develops his character, always, however, under the brooding influence of the Absolute, which is love infinite, and which is constantly exerting the upward spiritual urge, which is drawing the soul toward its ultimate haven of rest. Man must, and does, work out his own salvation and destiny, but the upward urge is always there, never tiring, never despairing, knowing always that ultimate victory belongs to the soul. Under the law of karma, every action, yea, every thought as well, has its karmic effect upon the future incarnations of the soul. And, not exactly in the nature of punishment or rewards, in the general acceptation of the term, but as the invariable operation of the law of cause and effect. The thoughts of a person are like seeds which seek to press forward into growth, bud, blossom and fruit. Some spring into growth in this life, while others are carried over into future lives. The actions of this life may represent only the partial growth of the thought seed, and future lives may be necessary for its full blossoming and fruition. Of course, the individual who understands the truth, and who has mentally divorced himself from the fruits of his actions, who has robbed material desire of its vital force by seeing it as it is, and not as a part of his real self, his seed thoughts do not spring into blossom and fruit in future lives, for he has killed their germ. The yogis express this thought by the illustration of the baked seeds. They show their pupils that while ordinary seeds sprout, blossom and bear fruit, still if one bakes the seeds their vitality is gone, and while they may serve the purposes of a nourishing meal, still they can never cause sprout, blossom or fruit. Then the pupil is instructed in the nature of desire, and shown how desires invariably spring into plant, blossom and fruit, the life of the person being the soil in which they flourish. But desires understood, and set off from the real man, are akin to baked seeds. They have been subjected to the heat of spiritual wisdom and are thus robbed of their vitality, and are unable to bear fruit. In this way the understood and mastered desire bears no karmic fruit of future action. The yogis teach that there are two great principles at work in the matter of karmic law affecting the conditions of rebirth. The first principle is that whereby the prevailing desires, aspirations, likes, and dislikes, loves and hates, attractions and repulsions, etc., press the soul into conditions in which these characteristics may have a favorable and congenial soil for development. The second principle is that which may be spoken of as the urge of the unfolding spirit, which is always urging forward toward fuller expression, and the breaking down of confining sheaths, and which thus exerts a pressure upon the soul awaiting reincarnation, which causes it to seek higher environments and conditions than its desires and aspiration, as well as its general characteristics, would demand. These two apparently conflicting, and yet actually harmonious, principles acting and reacting upon each other, determine the conditions of rebirth, and have a very material effect upon the karmic law. One's life is largely a conflict between these two forces, the one tending to hold the soul to the present conditions resulting from past lives, and the other ever at work seeking to uplift and elevate it to greater heights. The desires and characteristics brought over from the past lives, of course, seek fuller expression and manifestation upon the lines of the past lives. These tendencies simply wish to be let alone and to grow according to their own laws of development and manifestation. But the unfolding spirit, knowing that the soul's best interests are along the lines of spiritual unfoldment and growth, brings a steady pressure to bear, life after life, upon the soul, causing it to gradually kill out the lower desires and characteristics, and to develop qualities which tend to lead it upward instead of allowing it to remain on its present level, there to bring to blossom and fruit many low thoughts and desires. Absolute justice reigns over the operations of the law of karma, but back of that and superior even to its might is found the infinite love of the Absolute, which tends to redeem the race. It is that love that is back of all the upward tendencies of the soul, and which we all feel within our inner selves in our best moments. The light of the spirit, love, is ever there. Our relationship to others in past lives has its effect upon the working of the law of karma. If in the past we have formed attachments for other individuals, either through love or hate, either by kindness or cruelty, these attachments manifest in our present life, for these persons are bound to us, and we to them, by the bonds of karma, until the attachment is worn out. Such people will in the present life have certain relationships to us, the object of which is the working out of the problems in which we are mutually concerned, the adjustment of relationship, the squaring up of accounts, the development of both. We are apt to be placed in a position to receive hurts from those whom we have hurt in past lives, and this not through the idea of revenge, but by the inexorable working out of the law of compensation in karmic adjustments. And when we are helped, comforted and receive favors from those who we helped in past lives, it is not merely a reward, but the operation of the same law of justice. The person who hurts us in this way may have no desire to do so, and may even be distressed because he is used as an instrument in this way, but the karmic law places him in a position where he unwittingly and without desire acts so that you receive pain through him. Have you not felt yourselves hurting another, although you had no desire and intention of so doing, and, in fact, were sorely distressed because you could not prevent the pain? This is the operation of karma. Have you not found yourself placed where you unexpectedly were made the bestower of favors upon some almost unknown persons? This is karma. The wheel turns slowly, but it makes the complete circle. Karma is the companion law to metempsychosis. The two are inextricably connected, and their operations are closely interwoven. Constant and unvarying in operation, karma manifests upon and in worlds, planets, races, nations, families and persons everywhere in space is the great law in operation in some form. The so-called mechanical operations called causation are as much a phase of karma as is the highest phases manifest on the higher planes of life, far beyond our own. And through it all is ever the urge toward perfection, the upward movement of all life. The yogi teachings regard the universe as a mighty whole, and the law of karma as the one great law operating and manifesting through that whole. How different is the workings of this mighty law from the many ideas advanced by man to account for the happenings of life. Mere chance is no explanation, for the careful thinker must inevitably come to the conclusion that in an universe governed by law, there can be no room for chance. And to suppose that all rewards and punishments are bestowed by a personal deity, in answer to prayers, supplications, good behavior, offerings, etc., is to fall back into the childhood stage of the race thought. The yogis teach that the sorrow, suffering and affliction witnessed on all sides of us, as well as the joy, happiness and blessings also in evidence, are not caused by the will or whim of some capricious deity to reward his friends and punish his enemies, but by the working of an invariable law which metes out to each his measure of good and ill according to his karmic attachments and relationships. Those who are suffering, and who see no cause for their pain, are apt to complain and rebel when they see others of no apparent merit enjoying the good things of life which have been denied their apparently more worthy brethren. The churches have no answer except it is God's will, and that the divine motive must not be questioned. These answers seem like mockery, particularly when the idea of divine justice is associated with the teaching. There is no other answer compatible with divine justice other than the law of karma, which makes each person responsible for his or her happiness or misery. And there is nothing so stimulating to one as to know that he has within himself the means to create for himself newer and better conditions of life and environment. We are what we are today by reason of what we were in our yesterdays. We will be in our tomorrows that which we have started into operation today. As we sow in this life, so shall we reap in the next. We are now reaping that which we have sown in the past. Street. Paul voiced a world truth when he said, "Brethren, be not deceived, God is not mocked, for whatsoever a man soweth that shall he also reap." The teachers divide the operation of karma into three general classes, as follows. 1. The karmic manifestations which are now underway in our lives, producing results which are the effects of causes set into motion in our past lives. This is the most common form, and best known phase of karmic manifestation. 2. The karma which we are now acquiring and storing up by reason of our actions, deeds, thoughts and mental and spiritual relationships. This stored up karma will spring into operation in future lives, when the body and environments appropriate for its manifestation presents itself or is secured, or else when other karma tending to restrict its operations is removed. But one does not necessarily have to wait until a future life in order to set into operation and manifestation the karma of the present life, for there come times in which, there being no obstructing karma brought over from a past life, the present life karma may begin to manifest. 3. The karma brought over from past incarnations, which is not able to manifest at the present time owing to the opposition presented by other karma of an opposite nature, serves to hold the first in check. It is a well-known physical law, which likewise manifests on the mental plane, that two opposing forces result in neutralization, that is, both of the forces are held in check. Of course, though, a more powerful karma may manage to operate, while a weaker is held in check by it. Not only have individuals their own karma, but families, races, Nations and worlds have their collective karma. In the cases of races, if the race karma generated in the past be favorable on the whole, the race flourishes and its influence widens. If on the contrary its collective karma be bad, the race gradually disappears from the face of the earth, the souls constituting it separating according to their karmic attractions, some going to this race and some to another. Nations are bound by their karma, as any student of history may perceive if he studies closely the tides of national progress or decline. The karma of a nation is made up of the collective karma of the individuals composing it, so far as their thoughts and acts have to do with the national spirit and acts. Nations as nations cease to exist, but the souls of the individuals composing them still live on and make their influence felt in new races, scenes and environments. The ancient Egyptians, Persians, Medes, Chaldeans, Romans, Grecians and many other ancient races have disappeared, but their reincarnating souls are with us today. The modern revival of occultism is caused by an influx of the souls of these old peoples pouring in on the Western worlds. The following quotation from The Secret Doctrine, that remarkable piece of occult literature, will be interesting at this point. Nor would the ways of karma be inscrutable were meant to work in union and harmony instead of disunion and strife, for our ignorance of those ways which one portion of mankind calls the ways of providence, dark and intricate, while another sees in them the action of blind fatalism, and a third simple chance with neither gods nor devils to guide them would surely disappear if we would but attribute all these to their correct cause. With right knowledge, or at any rate with a confident conviction that our neighbors will no more work harm to us than we would think of harming them, 2/3 of the world's evil would vanish into thin air. Were no man to hurt his brother, karma nemesis would have neither cause to work for, nor weapons to act through a broken bar. We cut these numerous windings in our destinies daily with our own hands, while we imagine that we are pursuing a track on the royal road of respectability and duty, and then complain of those ways being so intricate and so dark. We stand bewildered before the mystery of our own making and the riddles of life that we will not solve, and then accuse the great Sphinx of devouring us. But verily there is not an accident in our lives, not a misshapen day or a misfortune, that could not be traced back to our own doings in this or another life via broken bar. Knowledge of karma gives the conviction that if a virtue in distress and vice in triumph makes atheists of mankind, it is only because that mankind has ever shut its eyes to the great truth that man is himself his own savior as his own destroyer, that he need not accuse heaven, and the gods, fates and providence, of the apparent injustice that reigns in the midst of humanity. But let him rather remember that bit of Grecian wisdom which warns man to forbear accusing that which ages though mysterious, leads us on unerring through ways unmarked from guilt to punishment, which are now the ways and the high road on which move onward the great European nations. The Western Aryans have every nation and tribe like their Eastern brethren of the fifth race, their golden and their iron ages, their period of comparative irresponsibility, or the Satya age of purity, while now several of them have reached their iron age, the Kali Yuga, an age black with horrors. This state will last a broken bar until we begin acting from within instead of ever following impulses from without. Until then the only palliative is union and harmony, a brotherhood in act to an altruism not simply in name. Edwin Arnold, in his wonderful poem, The Light of Asia, which tells the story of the Buddha, explains the doctrine of karma from the Buddhist standpoint. We feel that our students should become acquainted with this view, so beautifully expressed, and so we herewith quote the passages referred to. Karma, all that total of a soul which is the things it did, the thoughts it had, the a self it wove with woof of viewless time crossed on the warp invisible of acts. What hath been bringeth which shall be, and is, worse better last for first and first for last. The angels in the heavens of gladness reap fruits of a holy past. The devils in the underworlds wear out deeds that were wicked in an age gone by. Nothing endures, fair virtues waste with time, foul sins grow purged thereby. Who toiled a slave may come anew a prince for gentle worthiness and merit. One who ruled a king may wander earth in rags for things done and undone. Before beginning, and without an end, as space eternal and as surety sure, is fixed a power divine which moves to good, only its laws endure. It will not be contemned of any one, who thwarts it loses, and who serves it gains. The hidden good it pays with peace and bliss, the hidden ill with pains. It seeth everywhere and marketh all, Do right, it recompenseth. Do one wrong, the equal retribution must be made, though dharma tarry long. It knows not wrath nor pardon, utter true its measures meet, its faultless balance weighs times are as naught, tomorrow it will judge, or after many days. By this the slayer's knife did stab himself, the unjust judge hath lost his own defender, the false tongue dooms it sly, the creeping thief and spoiler rob, to render. Such is the law which moves to righteousness, which none at last can turn aside or stay. The heart of it is love, the end of it is peace and consummation sweet. Obey. The books say well, my brothers. Each man's life, the outcome of his former living, is the bygone wrongs bring forth sorrow and woes, the bygone right breeds bliss. That which ye sow ye reap. See yonder fields. The sesamum was sesamum, the corn was corn. The silence and the darkness knew, so is a man's fate born. He cometh, reaper of the things he sowed, sesamum, corn, so much cast in past birth, and so much weed and poisons tough, which mar him and the aching earth. If he shall labor rightly, rooting these, and planting wholesome seedlings where they grew, fruitful and fair and clean the ground shall be, and rich the harvest due. If he who liveth, learning whence woe springs, endureth patiently, striving to pay his utmost debt for ancient evils done in love and truth always, if making none to lack, he thoroughly purged the lion lust of self forth from his blood, suffering all meekly, rendering for offense nothing but grace and good. If he shall day by day dwell merciful, holy and just and kind and true, and rend desire from where it clings with bleeding roots, till love of life have end, he dying leaveth as the sum of him a life count closed, whose ills are dead and quit, whose good is quick and mighty, far and near, so that fruits follow it. No need hath such to live as ye name life. That which began in him when he began is finished, he hath wrought the purpose through of what did make him man. Never shall yearnings torture him, nor sin stain him, nor ache of earthly joys and woes invade his safe eternal peace, nor deaths and lives recur. He goes unto nirvana. He is one with life, yet lives not. He is blessed, ceasing to be. Om, Mani Padme Om. The dewdrop slips into the shining sea. This is the doctrine of the karma. Learn only when all the dross of sin is quit, only when life dies like a white flame spent, death dies along with it. And so, friends, this is a brief account of the operations of the law of karma. The subject is one of such wide scope that the brief space at our disposal enables us to do little more than to call your attention to the existence of the law, and some of its general workings. We advise our students to acquaint themselves thoroughly with what has been written on this subject by ourselves and others. In our first series of lessons, the 14 lessons, the chapter or lesson on spiritual cause and effect was devoted to the subject of karma. We advise our students to restudy it. We also suggest that Mr. Sinnott's occult story entitled Karma gives its readers an excellent idea of the actual working of karma in the everyday lives of people of our own times. We recommend the book to the consideration of our students. It is published at a popular price, and is well worth the consideration of everyone interested in this wonderful subject of reincarnation and karma.